Alright, so I get the tires on the axle. Setting up these tires, you can see they look neat, they're taller, and I'm going to set these ones up first to level the frame out. I do have these tires here that I want to run as well. Kind of gives it that look I really want to go for. But it'll drop the front down and give it a little bit of a rake if I set the chassis up square with these tires. Because I do want to run these tires as well. These give it that kind of an old school look. You'll know what I mean once I start building it, what I'm going for. So, got these tires set up. I'm about to put them in my frame jig. So they're just kind of mocked up right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to level the axle, square it all up, measure it from the ground, and that'll tell me what the height of the axle needs to be for my frame jig. So with the frame jig, I'm going to treat the top of these rails like the ground. So I'm going to measure up from the top of the rail up to where I want to hold the axle, and use my bracket here to support that axle, which will hold it in position. Then obviously I can move this back and forth, clamp it down where I want it. I'll do the same for the rear end, make a bracket to hold the rear end, clamp that down where I want it, and start mocking up where the motor is going to sit, where the seat's going to be, and a couple of the various parts. Get my wheelbase right where I want it, right where it needs to be to house everything. And then I'm going to start building the frame. So that's that. Let's get to it. Alright, so this is the tricky part of getting everything where it needs to be to hold the front axle level. Kind of need more than two hands to do it, but we'll get it done. I'm gonna square up this axle, hold everything in place as best I can. That looks square enough. Again, all I'm doing is getting the measure for the height. Normally this is the stuff I'd edit out, but I'm gonna leave it in there. Just because it always makes it look easier on TV when they're doing stuff like this. And I'm gonna say that is, look at that, 6 3/8. So that'll be my ground clearance, 6 3/8. So now I can take and pull these pins out, get the tires right off for now. That way there I can work with the axle a lot easier. And I now know my clearance. I'm going to translate that out to some brackets and put it on my frame jig. Let's do that. That one was the easy one. This one here is the hard one. Alright, so there's my axle. My spindle's out of the way a little. So, I'm going to put a bracket underneath the axle. And then, like I said, 6 3/8. So that'll be my ground clearance. So, let's get to building those. I'll take this bracket here, which is going to sit right on top of the seat channel. Measure this out, and this is roughly, I'm talking an inch and an eighth. So that's an inch and an eighth. We're going to check this out. This here is just over 9 1/4, so I'm going to cut this down which was the old bracket I had on there before. I'm gonna re-tack it in there so it'll hold, not enough so I can't break it off. So use just a couple tacks in there to hold it in place. A couple tacks here, one on this side, that way you grind out the one side and you just bend it back and forth till it snaps off. Then you grind your welds off and you can use it in the future. So this will not be solid weld, just enough to hold it. So we're gonna cut this down so that all together it was at 6 3/8 for the ground clearance of the front end. And then what I'm gonna do is take the axle, set the axle here, and you can either, put a couple tacks in there to hold it. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a couple C-clamps in there and it'll just stay there. That way I'm not welding on the axle, not that I can't grind it back off, but for ease of use, I'm just gonna put some C-clamps there. Maybe I'll weld it in the future, but C-clamps are what I'm gonna use for now. So, let's get this cut down and make a bracket. So I got my part here. I'm gonna measure this out. Remember, I want 6 3/8. I'm not gonna cut that because I gotta take away 1 1/4 inches. So, if my math is correct, it should be 5 1/8, which I believe should be correct. Make a mark there. You always measure twice, cut once. So 1 1/8 I want to cut on this side of that black line. So bring it over and cut it. Alright, so get the cut down bracket. I'm going to put it on top here. Bottomed out. Put it on there. Like I said, the bottom of the C channel, or sorry, the top of the C channel will be the ground. So I measure from there up, and that gives me 6 3/8. So this together is my ground clearance. Now, I find the middle, which I had marked previous. Can't quite see it no more, so I'm going to recenter this, put this in the center, and then I'll tack it on there. Do that part. 17 5/8. Right. I don't like doing math on camera. I'm doing some quick math. I do believe I got, it should be about right. 8 13/16. That's what I wrote. Yeah, 8 13/16. Translate that. There's my square. And yep, that is right where my old mark was. Oh. Must be doing something right. Now I'm going to find the center of this, which just is 1 1/2 inches. 3/4. there on the line. I will then use this square, make sure it's square in line with the frame jig. Put it right there. That should be square this way. And I don't have a small square. Let me look for a small. Alright, so I don't have a small square, but I do have these, they're 1, 2, 3 blocks. And they are very straight and true, the machinist blocks. So I'll use that as my square. Make sure everything's in line. Everything's going to go off of this. I know that this is already welded on there square. So square all that up. And we're going to throw some tacks on there. Well, the ground was on there. It got knocked off. Let's move up. Attach it right to it. Let's check it again. Again, I'm just tacking it, just hold it in place. So I got that tack on there. That's going to be the one I grind off later if I want to take it off. So I'm going to put a couple good sized tacks on this side, and that will hold it in place. You got that done. Let me put this away before I lose it. Alright, so now I'm taking my angle finder, throw that on there. And it's reading 0. And this is reading 0. What that will do is that will hold that front axle on in place. It'll give me the room to come back here and start tying into the frame. Yeah, it's getting there. First here is the rear end I'll be using. Some of you may recognize this. It's a rear end from Pennsylvania Panzer. Basically just an 8 3/4 Dodge. So that's the axle. And in order to measure the axle to get the right height from the ground, much like we did with the front end, we put the wheels on it, measured it, and we set that up. I'm going to do the same with the rear end. As you can tell, there's no wheels on it. I don't really feel like digging the wheels out when I run on this and put it on there. So I get the next best thing. Come over here, my Panzer, which has the wheels and tires I'm going to be putting on it. Not these set, because these ones will stay on this tractor, but I do have another set of these tires. But they are the tires I want to run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave them at the air they're at, but I'm probably going to take the weights off, and that'll give me my ground clearance. So I'll measure those up, and they'll tell me the height I want to set this rear end at. So let's get to it. Alright, so I measured my Panzer. Basically what I did was I measured from the bottom of this down, which I got 6 1/4 from the bottom of this to the floor, and that's a pretty straight piece off the back of the axle. So that'll give it a good mounting spot for my frame jig. So let's make a bracket to be able to hold this rear end. So I was digging around and I found this piece of 2x4 box channel. Oh, sorry, it's 2x5. My bad. So it's 2x5, and this here is 5 inches. It was cut down for 5 inches for something else. Not quite sure what it was used for, but it's my scrap pile. So if I put that here, and this, that's 1 inch by 2, so this is 1 inch, and this is 1/8 of an inch. So I am short 1/8 of an inch, but again, this is a garden tractor. 1/8 of an inch shouldn't really matter. We're talking about ground clearance here. So the rear end's low by 1/8 of an inch, you ain't gonna notice it. So what I gotta do now is I'm gonna square this all up, find the center. I will tack this in there just like that, the way it is. And I should be able to rest the rear end on top of it. Find a way to clamp it down, that will probably be the trick. I will, the way this is looking now, I'll probably just end up tacking it on there. Yep, looks like I'll probably be tacking the rear end onto this bracket. And let's get to it. So I move this one back to the front. A little more light in this side of the garage. I will, I'm going to tape measure. Where did I put it? There it is. I will mark the center out like I did before, which I wrote down was 8 13/16. Find the center again. Right there. Find the center of this, which this is a 2x5. So make a mark for the center. Line this up. Now I'll square this up the same way I squared the other side up. I'll put my square on there, the 1, 2, 3 block, because that's what I got. And throw the tacks on this like we did before. I'll put the rear end on top of this. I'll center that off, and I'll toss a couple tacks there, and we're in business. All right. So get this clamped. check. Make sure it's where you want it. It is very square. Check the top. It's right at 0. Carefully put it across this. And I got 0. We're good. It's zeroed out. I will put a couple more tacks in there. I got one tack here. I can't tack it like the other one does because obviously it overhangs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my tacks here and then I'll throw like one on this side. So what I'll do is I'll grind that one off and then I'll just have tacks on this one side and I can just pop it right off. So, put that one. Alright, I'll check it again, I'll check this side. Still straight this way. And I'm still straight up and down. It is square. Said that was reading 0. So now I can put the rear end on it, square that off, and I'll tack that onto the bracket. Rear end is heavy. I'll probably get help for that one. Alright, so I left that last clip in there just to show how difficult this is compared to what you see on TV and the magic of editing and whatnot. So, however, after that clip, I walked away, took a break because it gets really frustrating. Came up with a different way of how to do it and was able to accomplish it. However, battery died on my phone, so I wasn't able to record it. But I do have it all mounted in there, and it's pretty sturdy. I mean, it does move. I mean, it's not welded solid, it's just tacked in there. But it's enough to hold the position. The problem we had before was when I put it on there, and you're not taking consideration leveling the actual axle. So now it is level. Front to back, in, side to side. Let me get the lighting right so you can see it. It is zeroed out. So measured it up. It is in line with the frame jig, side to side, and perpendicular with the frame jig, so that way there it will track true. The front end I haven't measured that up, squared that one up yet. I just kind of put in the C-clamp right there for now. But my next step is I'm going to get the motor I plan on running, bring it down, put it in position, figure out where I want to put the seat, think about some weight position options, and from there I'll start running my frame. So these tabs I had put on before, I don't quite know if I'm going to run those or not. I might cut that back off. The position for the bolt right here is close to the brake lever, so if this brake lever ends up going up because I have to get in here and readjust those, if that brake lever goes up any higher than it is, I'm going to have to reposition where those bolts are going to go. That shouldn't be too hard. These weren't fully welded anyways. You see it's welded on that side. I didn't get this side because it was hard to get to, so I welded the top and I welded the sides. Said those were done a while ago. A previous attempt of making this thing. So far this is the furthest I've gotten with it. It is mounted to the frame jig. So I'll put my tabs on this. I will be doing the heim joints kind of like I did the spindles. Putting the heim joints on there, that way there I can adjust, I believe it's called a caster. So there I can have it tip back a little bit for a higher speed, so it'll corner a little better. These front wheels will be touching. Want them to have the best ability to corner as they're going to have. So I do have differential braking with these back here. So that's it for now.